After days of wrangling, finally an end to all the speculation. The 28 EU member countries agree on their nominees for the bloc's top jobs.
First and foremost, we have chosen 2 women and 2 men for the 4 key positions. A perfect gender balance. I am really happy about it. After all, Europe is a woman. I think it was worth waiting for such an outcome.
The nominee for EU Commission President, Germany's Defense Minister Ursula von der Leyen. The Conservative former Family Minister is the first woman to be nominated for the EU's top job. Right up until the last minute, German Chancellor Angela Merkel said she'd supported the previous nominees, but she's satisfied with today's outcome.
It's a good sign that Mrs. von der Leyen enjoys strong support among the heads of state and government for different reasons. Whether it's for NATO's mission in the Aegean on migration or Germany's assistance with air surveillance in the Baltics. Or simply for her hard work for Europe.
Anerkennung ist, weil sie sich einfach immer für Europa eingesetzt hat.
As pick for the new head of the European Central Bank, the leaders were unanimous in their backing for Christine Lagarde. Currently head of the International Monetary Fund, Lagarde is seen as a safe pair of hands. Belgium's former Liberal Prime Minister Charles Michel would succeed Donald Tusk as President of the European Council. Spanish Social Democrat Josep Borrell would take over as Europe's foreign affairs chief. But the biggest hurdle in this political race has still to be cleared. The European Parliament has to approve the lineup, and the Social Democrats have already set themselves against it.
Well, for some analysis now, let's go over to DW's Max Hoffman. He's in Strasbourg, where the European Parliament is meeting today. Max, the ball is now in the EU Parliament's court. What do MEPs there make of the nominees that they've been given by the European Council for the top jobs?
Well, let's go back a couple of weeks. Remember, most of the European Parliament said they would only support a candidate for the Commission presidency who previously was a so-called Spitzenkandidat, which is a lead candidate for one of the political groups right here in Strasbourg. Ursula von der Leyen is not that person, and you can imagine that among the political groups here, there is, well, I wouldn't call it happiness because of that decision. Now you have the Conservatives. Ursula von der Leyen is a Conservative. She's a member of the European People's Party, so they'll probably come around. The real problem here lies with the Social Democrats. They are not at all happy with this decision. First of all, it's not a Spitzenkandidat. Second of all, they were very close themselves to have the Commission presidency with Franz Timmermans, and we're hearing that there is huge trouble in that group how to go forward.
Now, the EU Parliament is voting on its own president this morning, Max. How's that going?
There are 4 candidates that have declared they're part of that race as of yesterday, 10 o'clock in the evening. That was the deadline, but we do expect one of the Social Democrats to make that race. There is one from Italy, David Sassoli, sort of a surprise candidate, a former journalist, and since neither the Conservatives nor the Liberals have declared any candidacy, we assume that this is part of that broader deal that was struck in Brussels. So we do expect David Sassoli, the Social Democrat from Italy, to get the voices also from the Conservatives and the Liberals, and that would be enough, of course, together with the votes of the Social Democrats, to put him over the edge. It might take 1 or 2 rounds, but it should be a done deal. And this is why it's difficult for the Social Democrats, because if they do this, they sort of, in a way, are part of that backroom deal that was struck in Brussels, because the leaders in Brussels said that the Social Democrats should have the position of Parliament president. And in this case, it's going to be hard for them to get out of this whole package deal when they vote on the Commission presidency, so effectively Ursula von der Leyen, in 2 weeks' time.
So still a bit to be sorted out there. Max Hoffman for us there in Strasbourg. Thank you so much. Let's take a closer look now at Ursula von der Leyen. If confirmed as European Commission president, the 60-year-old would become one of the most powerful politicians in the EU. But as we have already seen, her nomination is not without controversy. And in her current role as Germany's defense minister, she's also faced many challenges.
She's considered a close ally of German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Ursula von der Leyen, German Defense Minister, Christian conservative and long-time politician. A medical doctor and mother of 7, von der Leyen joined Merkel's CDU party in the early 90s. She later headed the Ministry of Family and Women before serving as Minister of Labour. As Germany's first female defence minister, von der Leyen aimed to revamp the armed forces. But she's recently drawn criticism for poor management in the ranks. Several scandals, including revelations of far-right extremists in the military, equipment failures and deadly military plane crashes, have plagued her tenure. A European at heart, fluent in both English and French as well as German, von der Leyen has long been seen as a possible successor to Merkel as Chancellor, or more recently as the next head of NATO. European leaders have now agreed to choose her as the next president of the EU Commission. If the European Parliament endorses her, she would be the first woman to fill the influential post.
Our political correspondent Hans Brandt is covering this story for us and joins us now from our parliamentary studios. Hans, Germany's defense minister Ursula von der Leyen has been nominated to head the EU Commission. What's the reaction here in Berlin?
Well, when the name was first floated on Tuesday, sometime during the morning, everyone was very surprised by this. This was not a name that anybody had expected would come up for head of the Commission. There had been some talk about Ursula von der Leyen possibly becoming one of the commissioners, in other words, becoming something like a minister in the European government, but that she would become prime minister of that government effectively, that is something nobody expected. So surprised with the first reaction. Then there is also some sense of satisfaction, I think one can say, especially amongst conservatives in Berlin, in Germany, because she is a conservative politician, because this means that a German will, for the first time in decades, in more than 50 years, head the European Commission. So in some sense also there is a feeling that Angela Merkel, as German Chancellor, put forward a candidate or supported in the end a candidate that also increased Germany's role in European politics.
So you say Chancellor Merkel supported this nomination, but formally Germany actually abstained from voting on Ursula von der Leyen's nomination for Commission President. Why?
Yes, we've just heard from Max in Strasbourg how controversial this nomination is amongst Social Democrats. And we have to remember that in Germany, Angela Merkel is governing together in a coalition with the Social Democrats. And the Social Democrats here in Germany have been vehemently opposed to the nomination of Ursula von der Leyen. So Germany abstained formally because Angela Merkel did not want to endanger the atmosphere, endanger the coalition in Germany here. So it's basically out of respect for the Social Democrats. At the same time, we have to say that there is a little bit of a cloud hanging over Ursula von der Leyen's head in the sense that in her defense ministry there's an inquiry, a parliamentary inquiry going on about spending in that ministry. And it's not clear whether Ursula von der Leyen will survive, as it were, politically survive this inquiry.
Now, Hans, if the European Parliament does approve Ursula von der Leyen's nomination to head the European Commission, what would this mean for Germany?
Well, Germany will certainly feel proud because, as I said, it's been more than 50 years that there has been such a top German politician leading the European Commission, leading the European Union. So Germany's influence in the European Union will be emphasized once again. At the same time, there's a question about what will happen here in Berlin, because one minister in this government will leave the government, and successor will have to be appointed. And within German domestic politics, all of that leads to a whole lot of questions, a whole lot of insecurity in a sense. So within Germany, I think, in German domestic politics, this also contributes to a feeling of a sense of instability and questions hanging over the government of Angela Merkel here in Germany.
Hans, thank you very much. DW political correspondent Hans Brandt.